This is a video I'm making for YouTube about the Navdata in X-Plane 11, how it is installed, how it works, which files you care for, and how X-Plane looks up the information that you need for navigation. And there's currently a little bit of confusion out there as to what is installed where, what depends on scenery, what depends on airports, and which data comes with X-Plane and which data is supplied by providers like Navigraph and Aerosoft. So I'll do a quick walkthrough. What we have here is the default X-Plane 11 file structure as it appears, for example, here in OS X Finder or in the Windows Explorer. And basically the directories you have to remember for Navdata for your purposes is the custom data folder and to some extent the custom scenery folder. And I will now explain which files go where. And I will do this by using our actual architectural overview as the Navdata for X-Plane 11 was designed. So hopefully you should see my whiteboard now. So I'll walk you through how Navdata in X-Plane 11 was designed to work. So as you can see here, we have several boxes in different colors and of different size. And those boxes represent the different layers of Navdata you can have in X-Plane 11. The size of the box represents the scope of the data, and the stack represents the least important data at the bottom and the most important data at the top. And the color coding of the boxes represents where you get them from. So let's start with the basic, the lowest black box. That is resources default data, which you will probably never need to touch and you shouldn't touch. So resources default data is here. Main folder of X-Plane, there's resources, there's default data. And you can see there is an earth_airway.dat, earth_fix.dat, earth_nav.dat. And that obviously means airways, fixes, and navates, worldwide coverage for the whole world. And there's also the SIF folder for coded instrument flight procedures, and that has one file for every airport, which stores the ZITs and stars and approaches for every airport. So coming back to our diagram, which is where, this is the lowest level. It's black. The box is black, which means you get it with X-Plane. And the box has maximum width, which means it has worldwide coverage. So this is all the data you get when you just download X-Plane 11, a demo version or the beta version, or what you eventually will get on DVD, or when we release it on Steam from Steam. And this is the worldwide base data. And the other black box you can see here, the one on the top that is also shipped with X-Plane, that is custom scenery, global airports, Earth nav data, earth_nav.dat. And this is what you find here. In the X-Plane main folder, there's custom scenery. In the custom scenery folder, there's the global airports folder where all the gateway scenery lives. And in the earth nav data folder, there's an earth_nav.dat. So this is another thing you don't need to touch because it is shipped with X-Plane and it is updated with X-Plane. Every time you download an update for X-Plane that includes a scenery export of airports from the scenery gateway, you get this earth_nav.dat that contains the localizers, the glide slopes, and the ILS DMEs for all ILS approaches into all airports in X-Plane. And this is tuned so that it works with the scenery, with all the global airports we distribute. Which means if you encounter a problem where an ILS approach doesn't quite fit the airport scenery, for example, you have a runway and the ILS approach is coming in skewed, and you're going to land besides the runway instead of on the runway. This is an example of a problem mismatch between the ILS and the scenery. And since the ILS lives here, it is distributed by the scenery gateway. So if you encounter this kind of problem, you have to report it to gateway.xplane.com as a data/scenery error. Because most of the time, actually, the ILS data is quite good and the ILS is correct, but the airport is slightly off, the scenery is slightly off, the runway is not exactly in the right place, but the ILS is in the place where it is in the real world, leading to the problem that the ILS leads beside the runway. So in most cases, the airport needs to be fixed, and of course, this is done using WED, and if you can't do it yourself, obviously you report it to the scenery gateway. So, those black boxes here ship with X-Plane, and you are actually not supposed to change anything in that data or touch it or delete it or whatever. And every time someone tells you, oh, to do this and do that, you have to go into this file and change that or delete that one. Problem is, this is not going to work because every time you run the X-Plane updater, it will overwrite those files and make sure you have the latest version that we ship with the X-Plane update, but it will also undo all your changes. All right, let's talk about the next layer. Here's a red box. That's the same width as the black box beneath, and this is the box that you pay for. If you want the monthly latest update from either Aerosoft or Navigraph, then that's what you get. You get worldwide coverage, the box is full width, and you get the EarthNav DAT, the Airway DAT, and the Fixed DAT, and also the SIF folder. Here's what it looks like. So in custom data, again, X-Plane root folder, there's custom data. And again, you can see there's an airway, a fix, a nav, and a SIF folder, again, with all the, with a DAT file for every single airport. Okay, coming back to the board, here we go. So as soon as this is installed, the layer underneath is hidden. So as soon as the red data is installed, this black data becomes invisible to X-Plane. Because obviously if you pay for updates and download them, you want to use them. You want X-Plane, the whole world of X-Plane, use that data. So this is why this red box is full size and completely covers what's underneath it. Now we have this green box. This green box is a little smaller, and it's green because you get it for free. So this is the FAA SIF file, which you get from the Federal Aviation Administration, the FAA website. No registration required, no user account required, completely free. Americans pay for that with their taxes. That's essentially what it is. It's open data from the US Federal Aviation Administration. And this is also the reason why this box is a little bit smaller, because it does not cover the entire world. It only covers where the FAA has jurisdiction, so you only get the data for the United States in there. But this data is super accurate and it's up to date for free. And as you can see, when X-Plane accesses data and it hits this green box, it will of course take this data as a priority, and the underneath lying layers are ignored. So if you have this data installed, you go to an airport in the US like Boston or Los Angeles, and you have this installed, and then you access the approaches for Boston, it will actually get them from this file. And if you have this file installed and you go to Europe and you land in Frankfurt or in London, of course this is not covered by this, so Explain goes down to the next layer. If you have global update from Aerosoft or Navigraph installed, that's what it uses. As you can see, the green box is still below the black scenery box, which means that even if you have this data update installed, if there's a scenery specific localizer, glide slope, or ILS DME, Explain will make sure that the scenery matches, or the airport matches the ILS perfectly by looking here first, and only if it's not in there, going to any of the layers below. And again, if you have a scenery problem with an ILS, the way to fix it is, of course, to either fix it yourself in wet or go to gateway.explain.com and report it as a bug. All right, there's one final layer, the last box. This one we haven't covered yet, and that sits at the top. This red box is the user underscore nav and the user underscore fix.dat. So it lives in the custom data folder, just like the paid updates. So in custom data, just like the paid updates, there can be a user underscore fix.dat. And if this is there, this takes the highest priority, and this contains user-defined fixes and user-defined navigats. So whenever you're dealing with something that is not covered by worldwide data, that is not covered by the Jeppesen or Lido data that Navigraph or Aerosoft sells you, which is not covered by the Explain scenery, then you can go to the user-defined level. So why would you need this? For example, let's say you're making you are interested in historical data, for example. You need a navigate that is no longer there in real life, and because it doesn't exist in the real world, you won't get it here, or you won't get it from Aerosoft or Navigraph. And if you want to place something in Explain that has no place in the real world, so you don't get it from here, this is where the user fix and the user navdat comes into play. You can create user fixes directly in Explain using the Explain default FMS. And if you save waypoints there, it will create the user underscore fix.dat for you. And this will allow you to define points just for your own use that don't need to exist in real life. And using this layered structure, Explain 11 allows all this to coexist. Because if Explain wants to access an information, a fix, a navigate, this is the way it goes. Checks. Has the user defined? Is it custom? If it's user defined, it's highest priority. Nothing else overrides user defined fixes. Okay, if that doesn't exist, is it a scenery defined ILS? Does it exist in the Explain global scenery? If not, is it in the United States or in the coverage of the FAA, and is the free FAA data installed? If yes, then take this. If not, goes down. Do we have updated data, updated worldwide data? Is it in there? And if not, finally, we get down to the bottom that is shipped with Explain by default. And this is how nav data works in Explain 11.